people to enter the profession, and if you want to encourage more people to train, the last thing you do is get rid of the training bursary. They've got rid of the training bursary, they're putting up tuition fees, and then they're surprised that applications for nursing drop by 16% on the latest figures. They're the latest figures just revealed in the last few weeks. So the second thing we will do, as well as giving the staff a fair pay rise, we will bring back the training bursary and get rid of tuition fees as well. And all of this is part of a picture of deliberate and systematic underfunding of the National Health Service under the Tories. The NHS is going through the biggest financial squeeze in its history. We have hospitals and local health authorities, CCGs as they call them now, in deficit across the country. And rather than sorting out those deficits, this government is now imposing something called a capped expenditure process. A capped expenditure process, which means Tory cuts here in Cornwall, rationing of services here in Cornwall, closing community hospitals here in Cornwall, cutting back on staff here in Cornwall. That's what the Tories are doing to our NHS. So we, in the general election, and when we form a government, will finally give the NHS the money it needs. £37 billion extra investment under a Labour government. That was our commitment in the general election. That will be the commitment of the next Labour government. And things have got so bad when it comes to the underfunding of our National Health Service that even Andrew Lansley, do you remember Andrew Lansley? Even Andrew Lansley has said, we never expected austerity to last this long in the NHS. Andrew Lansley, he was the Secretary of State responsible for the Health and Social Care Act. A Health and Social Care Act which has put rocket boosters under NHS privatisation. And we've all seen the issues and the problems with this Tory privatisation. Do you know what the latest privatisation is? At a time when we have a staffing crisis in the NHS, at a time when hospitals are spending millions on agency staff and locums, here in Cornwall last year, an increase in 80% in their agency staffing costs. What happened once is that the NHS set up its own in-house agency to lower the costs of agency work for those occasions when hospitals sadly have to turn to agency work. Guess what? It makes money, it saves the taxpayer money, it saves hospital trust money. Guess what these Tories are doing it? They're trying to privatise it this summer. It's called NHS Professionals. We're fighting it, we're opposing it. This Tory privatisation will come to an end under a Labour government. And then there's something else I want to do as well. In the newspapers today, I've revealed new figures from my research. The amount of NHS land and NHS assets up for sale has just been doubled by these Tory ministers. 1,500 hectares of land for sale. It's part of something called the Naylor Report. Well, let me tell you this. We are utterly opposed and campaigning against a fire sale of NHS assets. NHS land and NHS assets is there for the community, not to be sold off under by these Tories. So look. So we're going to put the investment into the National Health Service. And when we put that investment into the National Health Service, we'll be able to deliver the quality of care that we need in this country. We'll be able to reverse these big cuts, nearly £5 billion worth of cuts to the social care sector, which we know is putting huge pressure on the front line of our NHS. We'll be able to invest and genuinely deliver parity of esteem for mental health services. Because in this country, in the last 7 years, we've lost over 6,000 mental health nurses in this country. There's 80,000 young people across this country in need of mental health provision. And yet, under these Tories, mental health for children and adolescents is being cut back across the country, and the money allocated to fill wider holes in the NHS. So look, one of our big priorities is to deliver the funding and to deliver the mental health services this country needs. For too long, we've neglected mental health services. Under a Labour government, we're going to do something about it and deliver parity of esteem. And we're going to do something about child health as well. Because children's health in this country has been neglected for years also. Children's health in this country, when you compare us to other Western nations, is poor. And often children's health is connected to child poverty. And when you look at what is happening because of the cuts to the various different benefits and the cuts to housing and the cuts to public services, you can see that child poverty is escalating and with it child ill health. Here in Cornwall, I've just been hearing how there's potentially significant cutbacks to health visitors and school nurses. Well, we're going to end that as well. We're going to put the investment into improving the health of every single child. We're going to end the cuts to public health budgets. And we've got a big ambition. But our ambition is to have the healthiest children in the world. And it begins with investing in community health and public health. That is a big priority of the next Labour government. So look. All of these things require investment in the National Health Service. I accept that. But let me tell you something. When these Tories, or when you're campaigning on the doorstep, when they say, well, where's the money going to come from? This is all fine, this is all well and good. Tell them this. If you can find £1 billion to prop up yourself in Downing Street by giving that money to the DUP, you can find the money for our National Health Service. If you can find billions of pounds to cut corporation tax, and you can find £1 billion to cut inheritance tax for the wealthiest of estates, you can find the money for the National Health Service. If you can find billions of pounds to cut the top rate of tax, then you can find £500 million to give NHS staff a fair pay rise as well. So do not let anyone kid you. What prevents these Tories acting for our National Health Service is not the financial constraints of the economy, but the dogmatic constraints of their ideology. Austerity is a choice, and it is a choice that the Labour Party will reject when we get into government. So let me finish, because I know you're not come here to listen to me, but let me finish by telling you this. It is possible in this country to build a society where no child goes hungry. It is possible in this country to provide the very best quality of care, publicly provided, publicly funded, with the Secretary of State having his responsibility to provide healthcare reinstated. It is possible to give every young person the chance of a good education and a good higher education, and it is possible to give everybody who wants it a decent paying job and a decent house to live in, and it is possible to give every older person dignity and security in retirement. It is possible. It's the Labour way. It's what we will do, and have confidence that when that next election comes, we will win it and form a government and save the National Health Service. Thank you, Cornwall.